same energy.
Hey, good people. Good evening, good evening, good evening. Welcome back to another Boss Conversations with Janeah. Today, I have a very important conversation because this conversation, although I see this brother going around having this conversation quite often, I've been following him for some years now. And it is a blessing to be able to have a one on one with him. And we're talking about health, mental health, men's health, especially Black men's mental health. We want to touch on some of the things that are plaguing our community and our people. So, without any further ado, I'm going to bring him on. You guys, let's give a warm welcome to Dr. Obari Cartman.
Hey,
Hey,
Sister Janeah, how you doing?
I'm good, brother. How are you?
I am well. I'm good.
All
Thanks for having me
right.
over here.
I am so happy to have you on. This is a very important conversation. And one thing I pride myself on is having conversations that matter. And
Hmm.
this is a conversation that really matters. So thank you for coming on.
No, for sure. Thank you for the invite and thanks for the platform. Just to make sure we having conversations and not to just be chatter, but to be real substantive. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
appreciate that. There's folk like you that are really digging at the topics that are important. So
All
appreciate you.
right. Thank you. So, go ahead and introduce yourself. I want you to tell the people who you are and what you do, what your business, what services, what do you provide for us, for our
hmm
communities?
Um, Obari Cartman. I'm a psychologist by training. So my degree is in clinical and community psychology. The way I practice that looks a little bit different than sort of the traditional psychologist. Um, and I'm pausing right there, even when I say traditional. So, like, because anytime we say words, they are all always embedded in a cultural context. So,
Okay.
if I say no, I'm not a traditional psychologist, people have a sense of what that looks like a
Right.
clinical psychologist sitting in the office. But like, whose tradition is that? based
Right.
on based on whose I'm saying worldview is that. So I spend a lot of time wrestling with those questions, like whose tradition do I want to base my psychology on? And it can't be the way I was trained if in my view, if it's going to do the work that I believe Black people need to do. So I do a lot of work that looks more like community based, grassroots, incorporating arts and culture into the therapeutic practice. I got a book, so that's one of the things that is the entrepreneur part of me. I had to figure out how to sell a book. Like I got ideas, I got stuff I want to get out, but now I got to enter this marketplace, right? So
Right.
I always look forward to talking to entrepreneurs and people that are in that world. Um, I don't do a lot of individual therapy. I do more trainings and consultings, and um, I have a curriculum. It's a rites of passage, hip hop based, sort of manhood development curriculum. So I'm kind of
Okay.
selling that, right? So there's products that I have that I promote. I'm working on a second book about Black spirituality. So those are the things that are sort of the bring me into the entrepreneur space. But all of my work is around healing and wellness and the ways in which they incorporate art, culture, spirituality, Blackness, political context, intergenerational healing from an African Center
Okay.
perspective. So that's my work.
That is dope. That is dope. And how long have you been in this field?
It's another, see, even that, like the question of the field. We
Come
grow
on.
up, we like, where you want to be
'Cause
when
this
you
is
grow
what
up.
I've been trained to say.
Yeah. And I do it. I'm having to even wrestle my own language out of my children's conversations, right?
Okay.
This question, like,
Yes.
what do you want to be when you grow up? Then you pick a thing, and then you are that thing, and then you go to school, and you go to college, and then you get a job, and then you work in that field for your life, and then you die, like whatever it is. But what I think about more than what my field is, and I think about how do I use my gifts, my talents, my own personal healing journey, and invite other people into that. Sometimes it looks like psychology. Sometimes I avoid the word psychology. I like to use to do work where I don't even got to say therapy. It's just Black men gathering to support each other to connect, and in doing so, what I've learned over the years is I've like taken these boxes off of my professionalism. Is I used to be much more rigid. I used to be like, some people would know me as a drummer, and that's all they would know. They
Right,
wouldn't know about
right.
the doctor. When they would say, okay, I know Bart.
Yeah.
He's the drummer, or he's the
Mhm.
photographer, or he's the writer. People would know me in very specific, rigid ways. So I grew up in a house that was very African centered. We played drums and celebrated Kwanzaa. Went to independent Black schools, and when I went to graduate school for psychology, I felt like I had to take that off and then be a psychologist. I remember I was
Mm.
being a professor even while I was in school, and I remember doing like this game. I would like put glasses on. I had a fake wedding ring on my ring finger. I would use big fancy words that I thought made me sound more like a professor. Um, I would do therapy, and then I would leave my therapy office, and then I would go to a community meeting. But they were
Oh,
separate, like these were
wow.
separate things. But
Right.
the older I got, the more sort of mature and um, the more I learned to understand my particular work. It wasn't about a job or a field or a profession. It was about a life calling. It was about a divine purpose. It was about an assignment from my ancestors. It's about obligation to my commitment to the reason I was created. Sometimes I get paid for it. Sometimes I don't. Right.
Right. Right.
But all of the work is connected now. The drumming. So now I do drum circles that are wellness circles, right? So it's not two
Wow.
things. It's not a separate thing. Now,
Right.
right now, I'm using photography for participatory action research, where we're doing giving cameras to young people and having them document their community and having that be the evidence that they use to make arguments for what they need in their communities. So I've learned much more succinctly to have a holistic approach to the work that doesn't make my separate selves like it's a lot of chaos when you're like, okay, now I'm this and I'm this and this.
Yeah.
No, I'm all of it. All of it's in
Yeah,
me.
I kind of want to dive into that a little bit,
Yeah.
just a little bit. When you talk about, what we are conditioned to think therapy is and what you went to school for,
Hmm.
traditional therapy,
Yeah.
and what you are saying now that I feel like you're saying you discovered um like your truth wasn't in that and you had
Hmm.
to figure
Hmm.
out how to bring your truth into that
Absolutely.
to be able to service our people. Talk about that journey and how you were able to do that to reach our people, because one thing I know is I've been watching you since I think 2016, like really watching you
Hmm.
since I met you when I was out with New Era
Hmm.
Chicago. And that was a time frame where I really started watching you. And then to know that I went to Georgia State too. So to know that you
Oh,
did
right.
what I
Okay.
did. I
Yeah.
went to Georgia State, then I came back here.
Hmm.
Um, I've been intrigued by your work. And so I see that you are growing
Mm.
and who you're reaching in our community. So talk about that, how you brought your truth into that and then to actually reach our people and be
Yeah.
effective.
Hmm. Hmm. I mean, it's all very intentional. So if without like the deliberateness of it, it's very easy to just get wrapped up in the machinery, to go to school and be a professor and do insurance and work at the office, and that machine compensates you well. There's incentives for just
Right.
going along with the program as is. And so what I really had to do was to, it's not me. I can't take credit for this. This is life. Life did this to me. My mother got sick. That's what happened to me.
Okay.
Um, I was in Atlanta, did an internship in Northeast, and I would have left that internship and went on the job hunt, and I would have started a career just like everybody else, in the field does. But my mother got sick; she had early dementia, and I didn't know it was dementia at the time. I just she
Right.
was something was wrong, so I moved back to Chicago just for a short amount of time, just to get my mama back on track. And in the meantime, I had to pause my career as I had envisioned it. I was going to go to Brooklyn. I was going to go back to Atlanta. I was going to go somewhere and work, and then be in that rat race. I was going to be, I'm saying, a cog in that machine. But had been forced to pull myself away from it, gave me a second to sit down for a bit, which I think is which is one of the, I mean, it's an unfortunate sort of benefit of COVID, but like that pause that we've all had to do. I had to do it early in my career, like right at the beginning. I was like, okay, I got to sit down, caretaking for my mother right now. That was my work. It was a caretaker.
Right. Right.
I didn't go right to a university or to an office. I went right to my mother, and in doing so, it allowed me to really reflect on who I am and what I'm good at and what my work is. Part of that work at the time meant to serve my mother, but in serving my mother and thinking about connecting to my parents, I started writing the first book. Wouldn't have happened if I wasn't sitting at home caretaking for my mother. It just wouldn't
Come
happen.
on. Come on.
So as it was happening, my father. I lost my father a couple of years ago, 15 years ago. But when I first started writing, I was in the place where I was trying to find myself connect to the things my parents gave me, but do it without my father being present. And so I had to like rediscover my father through his things, through his artifacts, through his letters, through his,
Okay.
the relationships that I was having with people that he was working with. And in doing that, it was really just fine tuned who I am through learning my connection to them. And that became a sort of larger connection between like my ancestors and my lineage, and in ways that that became who I became beholden to. It became that directed my steps. It wasn't the profession. It was the why am I here, and how can I use this training, this PhD, this psychology to do that work, to do my purpose work. But it was that pause. It was that moment where, right after I graduate, like instead of getting right to it, I decided to go home and sacrifice and to,
Right.
to reconnect. And it was a groundingness that centered my career in a way that wouldn't have happened otherwise.
I can imagine when you decided that this was the route that you were going to take.
Hmm.
Either you decided or you discovered
Yeah, yeah.
that this is your true calling and this is where you need to be. I can imagine that there were many hurdles.
Hmm.
Many hurdles. Can we talk about some of the hurdles that you faced with trying to help our community, our people?
Yeah.
Because I know firsthand, a lot of people they rooftops. You should go do this and you should do
Hmm.
that for the people and this and that. But if you've never been in those trenches,
Hmm.
you will never know how hard it is
Yeah.
to help people who, first of all, don't believe they need help, or
Hmm.
second of all, are so comfortable in
Hmm.
their trauma that they don't want help.
Yeah.
Talk about some of the hurdles that you have faced.
I mean, we all been traumatized. Like Black people have been under a world of hurt. And so it shows up in lots of different ways, not even just in the community that we're trying to heal, but even in the practitioners ourselves, in the organizers and the leaders. Like we all got sickness in ways that sometimes we know and sometimes we don't. And yeah, I don't believe that we are our own worst enemy in that way, but I do
Okay.
think that we get in our own way. We trip up over our own stuff. Um, Being in the field of mental health is hard because, as you say, a lot of people don't even realize that they're sick. So like I'm like, here, I got this medicine for you, and they like, I don't need that. I'm good. Like I'm
Right.
treated. So I've had to learn to work around that, particularly with men. Like I don't
Yeah.
do, I won't do a session where I put a flyer out and say, hey guys, come talk about your feelings. Let's work on our wellness. Right? I'll use drums as the hook. I'll use hip hop as the hook.
Okay.
We use food. I'll use sports. I'll use something. What I've learned to do more often is go where they at, and then bring that medicine to them. And even in that, you still got to package it. I got kids. You still got to put cheddar on the broccoli. Sometimes you still got to put
Yeah.
the vitamins and gummy flavor. You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
you got to administer medicine in a way that is appealing to people, that they would take it without even knowing they take it. Sometimes until we get to a place where people know that they deserve to be better, and that they're committed, and there's a courage that's the obedience that's required too. So the workaround is to use the stuff that we already do, just the natural environments, the natural activities, and then and incorporate healing elements to that. So that's the way I've gotten around
That's
that.
that's how you I know you use hip hop as well.
Yeah,
When
for
you
sure.
use hip hop within your healing process, whatever
Hmm.
it may be, whether it's the children or the adults or the in-betweens,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
um, how do you pick certain kind of hip hop? Do you only play certain kind? Do you steer away from certain kind? You know, this is just for the lack of a better way to describe this. I'm going to
Hmm.
say, because I know that anybody with intelligence will get this. Okay. So you have the good hip hop,
Hmm.
and you
Hmm.
have what they consider as the bad hip hop.
Yeah.
So, y'all, please don't blow me up talking about what's bad hip hop
Yeah,
and what's good. You
yeah,
guys
yeah,
know what
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
talking
yeah.
about. Okay. So when you have that, do you choose to steer away from bad hip hop? Or levitate towards the good hip hop to get your
Hmm.
messages,
Hmm.
or do you just incorporate, because you said you want to meet them where they are,
Yeah,
so do you incorporate the music they already listening to,
yeah.
which how do you do that?
All of it. I do all of it. I use all of it. The way I think about good and bad is honest or dishonest.
Okay.
So even if it's honest and bad, right, then we still talk about it. Let's look at that. I ask the young person what you listen to, who you like, and now you get to have a conversation about what does it mean to like a thing. So they bring me artists and the song. They say I like this song, and I say, what do you like about that song? What are they talking about? It just becomes a conversation. I print lyrics out all the time, like line.
Oh, I lost you, brother. I lost you.
Hello, mic check, 1 2 1 2.
Okay. Okay, you're back.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, you're freezing. Oh, brother, you might have to go back out and come back in. Oh, I hate when that happens. I don't know if he's getting a call or what, and this is getting good, you know? Come back in, brother. You guys, this is definitely getting good. It's very important. This is a well needed conversation. This brother is a well needed brother. So we gotta hear it. All right, you're back.
Okay, there we
Yeah,
go.
you're good. All right, come on.
It's that Southside Wi-Fi raining. Um, FES probably listening to. What we talking about hip hop. So I use both of it. So the work for me is to develop young people in particular that have a critical lens so they can be in the world that they're in and like navigate it, wade through it, to listen carefully to the ideas and the messages so they can be active consumers of their world. I'm not for censorship. Like I'm not saying listen to it or don't listen to it. I'm saying listen to it actively and think about what the implications of those messages, images, and ideas are so that you're not internalizing stuff that was created from the outside of you from corporations that don't have your interest in mind,
Okay.
that are deliberately trying to weaponize this thing to attack you. Like I presented like that. And with that in mind, what you like, let's listen to it line by line. Let's what is the content, what they're talking about, what are they promoting, what are they glorifying, what are they saying they're struggling with, and let's just look at that, what that has to do with you and your life. You know, they somewhere far away, but like what does that have to do with you? And what often happens is I'm in conversation with young people and they're talking about in their real life struggling with stuff like addiction or incarceration or violence
Right. Right.
or abuse or whatever it is. So in their real life, they're like, man, this stuff has caused me harm. But then if I can point to that stuff in the music, now we have a new conversation about what does it mean to like a thing that harms you also, that you've suffered from. So now they you know now they're paying more attention, like they're paying closer attention. What I love to do is expose the industry behind it. Tell me who you like. Let me find out who label they work for, and then let's find
Okay.
out who the CEO, the board of directors of their labels. Print them
Right.
out.
What they look like.
Over and over again. You got a bunch of old white people um, that are controlling the content, that are producing, that are manipulating, and so people don't like to feel like that. Once you sort of expand that, people don't like to feel like they've been like they're a puppet. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um,
Right.
so
Right.
once you get that in their brain, then they listen to the same song that they said they liked through a different lens, and that's for me the therapy is to just to
Good.
prepare them to be in that world, and not just like be a passive recipient of white corporations stuff. To recognize the weapon and to disarm it by having young people be more aware of what the content is. So I do that with the so-called bad hip hop, but with the good stuff, you know, there's so much good stuff out there. And again, not always positive, but just like honest, just
Yeah.
giving a good opportunity to think about life and talk about what it means, and you know, so I use the music. I also really like to rely on, especially right now, on the interviews, because now I can juxtapose what an artist is saying in their music and what they're saying in their real life. And in their real life,
Okay.
they might say like, you know, Future will say, I'm not really an addict. I just rap about drugs because it's a catch. Now what does that mean? To have a grown man saying, I don't even do these drugs. I'm just trying to be cool or appear cool. And
And I'm
there's
selling millions,
millions.
millions
Yeah.
promoting it.
Right. So there's a cowardice behind that idea of like taking money from white people to promote something that's going to harm black people, and then you got adults that are participating in that. So like there's all these layers that I use hip hop for, But again, there's a lot of really powerful, productive content that I expose them to that doesn't get radio play. That's not like popular. That allows us
Right.
to dig into more deep, I'm saying, more meaningful conversations. So all of it, I do all of it.
And the drums are another great incorporation. I
Mm-hmm.
remember, where did I see you playing? Okay, you were playing at, I think it's like, it might have been, I don't know if it was the African festival like 3 years ago. It
Mm.
was one of those festivals, and you got down with the drums. There was a bunch of you brothers playing the drums. And I tell you, like, I felt it in my spirit, and like we
Mm-hmm.
couldn't walk away.
Yeah,
We
yeah,
were
yeah,
so in tune. And I think that, I love that you use that as well, because a lot of us don't know how the drums are embedded in our DNA,
for
and
sure.
they don't know how, when you guys get together and play these songs and all of you guys are on different waves, how it
Mm-hmm.
taps into different things inside of us.
For sure.
And
Yeah.
so how do you see that? How is it using that? I know how it could be using hip hop. That's a great
Mm-hmm.
tool. Do you feel like the hip hop using that music is a better tool for the younger people, and the drums may be better for older people? Or do the
Not
drums
so much. It's
affect
the
both?
it's the connection between the two. So
Okay.
my interest in hip hop is about the drums.
Okay.
It's about the rhythm. It's about the African tradition inside of hip hop. I see hip hop as a modern iteration of an ancient practice. And so the storytelling, the oral tradition, the rhythm, the call and response, the improvisation, these are old African things. Like these, hip hop as we know it, born in the Bronx, it has a couple decades of history, but it's just a new version, a new expression of an old thing. And so the drums just allow me to make that connection. Sometimes we rapping on drums just to make it clear that like this is old stuff. Like this is our stuff. And that there's been a process to disconnect us from our stuff and the Africanness in the things that they've commercialized and modernized, capitalized on. And so it's not one or the other. It's again the connections between all of it. And the drums, just like you experienced, it allows an invocation, it allows a connection back to a place and a time and the wisdom that's embedded in us that supersedes this language. Like I feel ashamed that we still speaking in English sometimes. Like this, it's a badge of shame for me that my last name is Cartman. I'm looking at it right now. Like just the ways in which our healing requires a deep recovery of those things that, like I was about to say, we lost. We didn't lose them; they were forcefully removed from us. And so, if I'm saying I'm doing therapy now, if I'm trying to do healing now, and part of the trauma was taking medicine and power away from my people, then I got to bring it back. Like I got to bring it front and center, and those drums allow me to do that. It allows us to get in circle, to sort of powwow, if you will, to invoke, to call upon ancestors and gods and goddesses that whose names we don't even know how to speak, but the drums become an invocation of it brings forth entities that are much more wise than I could ever be. And so it becomes a facilitation of a healing space that once you ain't got to have no experience in it. There's something that you have a muscle memory, like your blood remembers these things that they took from us. And once
Right.
we
Right.
bring them back, like it's just a reawakening of healing potential that is over and over again. I see it just transforming people. So all of it's the same: the hip hop, the drums, the oral tradition, the spoken word, the movement. Um, Talking is cool. Like we got to talk about some stuff. We got to figure it out. But there's some of this trauma we got to sweat out. Some of it we got to move out. Some of it we got to breathe through. Sometimes talk
Right.
is a limited healing modality.
You, true. It's all of the music, all of the different
Mm-hmm.
instruments. We definitely have something in our code that
Yeah.
gets triggered by it. I worked briefly in Harvey,
Mm-hmm.
at a middle school in Harvey, and I taught creative writing. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I did for my students was, we had this little downtime. And I didn't, for someone, they might wanted to call it meditating.
Mm-hmm.
Some had religious reasons they couldn't
Mm-hmm.
meditate. So I just called it, just quiet time.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is, especially when I noticed they came in just like on 10. Because let me tell you,
Hmm.
them sixth, seventh, and eighth graders, they are lit.
Yeah.
They know a lot. Okay, they
Yeah.
know a
Yeah.
lot.
Yeah.
But one thing I would do during that time is I would play hip hop violinists, and I
Hmm.
would play it off of YouTube. And so I
Hmm.
put together a nice little playlist, and it's violinists playing current songs.
Nice.
So
Yeah.
the thing is, the kids know the words to the songs, but
Hmm.
they're only hearing the tunes.
Hmm.
And I walked around the class and I talked to them
Hmm.
about picturing themselves being great, picturing themselves
Hmm.
having a good day today, picturing themselves going home and the monsters are having a good day. So I one thing
Mm.
I would tell my students is, because when students get close with you, they tell you all everything.
That's
Okay,
right.
they tell
Right.
you everything that's going on at home
Right. Right.
and all. And sometimes the kids would tell stories and the other kids would be like, so what I would say is we talk about the monsters at home.
Mm.
And the monsters are whoever, whether it's your parents, your grandparents,
Hmm.
your
Hmm.
siblings. And we just talk about just being away from the monsters and being in
Hmm.
your own space and feeling safe. And I think that, for some of you that have kids that you are disconnected with, sometimes you have to take the lyrics away and you
Yeah.
need to teach your kids to just be still in the moment.
Hmm.
And a lot of the kids I was dealing with had a lot of trauma going on at home. What are they going to do in the home where the trauma is? You know what I'm
Hmm.
saying?
Hmm.
So I would teach them to go into the bathroom and take two
Yeah.
minutes and feel
That's
the
right.
way they felt in that classroom listening to that music and learn
Yeah.
how to breathe.
Yeah.
So I think it's good that I bring on brothers like yourself. You're actually the second brother that I brought on that is talking even about mindfulness and just
Hmm.
awareness, especially within our kids. When we talk about our men, I only have a couple more questions for you and we're good.
Okay.
But for women, like, I'm a black woman, I date black men,
Yeah.
and we deal with men that have so much trauma
Hmm.
going on. It's a whole back road of trauma. What
Hmm.
can you give us women any little tools to deal with men that are going through a heightened amount of trauma at the time? So they're always going to come with the trauma because of
Hmm.
just what we deal with. But
Yeah.
sometimes they're in the thick of it right now. And I might not know that me nagging him on or constantly asking him to open up to me or whatever, how
Hmm.
triggering that is. Can
Hmm.
you give us a couple little nuggets to help us deal with our men that are in heightened states of trauma?
Hmm. Um, it's a good question. The first thing that comes to mind is to give men the space to express their traumas, their healing journeys, their emotional experiences in their own way, and not expect it to sound
Okay.
like it would sound if you were to say it. Because then you miss a lot. Like women think
Okay.
that he don't ever tell me nothing, and he tried. It didn't sound like you wanted it to sound. It wasn't.
Okay.
It didn't have as many words as you wanted it to
Right.
sound like. I could be in a conversation with a man and 3 words, and like I know exactly what he mean. Right. I don't know if we can curse on here. I was about to say something. I don't know.
Yeah. Oh yeah,
Like,
you can. Yeah.
uh, but like
Yeah, we talk.
just like we could be in a moment. He could describe an experience. And he was like, man, that shit was fucked up. And I'm
Right.
like, I mean, I know what you mean, bro. Right? I know exactly what you mean. And that might be all he got in that moment. And it's important that we encourage them to give space to share more, to describe it, and to look at it. But you can't force a man to go further than he's ready to go. But if he
Okay.
goes where he wants to go and gets rejected, or he says just a couple of things out just to test to see how people gonna respond, there have been times when I've said something that is more vulnerable or honest, and women they ain't ready for that. They don't want it. The kinds of things that we learn around what is soft or what is
Right.
weak, we learn often from women, right? If you go to a movie on a first date with a woman, right? I've had those moments where like, man, I was really touched by a thing.
Right,
I
right,
dare
right.
not start crying with somebody I don't know like that. Like you got to develop a safety, a space where you feel like you're not going to be judged, a
Come
space where you
on.
know that like I'm not going to, my
Where she's
manhood's
not
not
gonna
going to
go
get
call
dinged.
all her girls and be
She
like,
ain't finna,
girl, this fool
she
was
ain't finna, she
crying.
ain't gonna play you. She ain't gonna, you know what I'm saying? A
Right.
lot of that we learn from women. So y'all really dictate a lot of what we find safe and permissible in terms of our vulnerabilities, in terms of our openness. It's been my experience that a lot of my most intimate, transformative conversations have happened with women. So y'all do have a power that undeniable. That your
Right.
healing power, your restorative power, is something that nothing on the planet can do for us like you. Um, so it's also important though that you do it with boundaries, that you do it with safety, that you don't
Okay.
extend yourself too far, that you don't deplete yourself waiting for a man to get ready to do a thing, that you want to offer it, you want to give him space, you want to let him do it in his own way. Um, there's times when like we use soaps, sports like y'all use soap operas in the old days, like the drama, just the what I'm saying, just the like the little intricacies, the emotions. Sports is a very emotional, what I'm saying, world. It's really the only space that men can see other men crying, being happy, um, being
You're right, I
afraid.
never even thought about
Like
that,
sports
like,
is
when you see men on the court, like, when they win a championship and they crying on their
You see the whole
interviews,
thing. You see him
we never
crying.
see it soft.
There was a brother crying on TV because he lost, not even because you see him crying because they lose or because they win. Like
Right,
there's a space of freedom that sports allows men to be able to connect to and see other men emote in ways that a woman might miss. Like a woman be like, oh, they doing guy stuff. They over there. They so disconnected from their emotions. Meanwhile, they crying. They sad. They happy. They losing money. They winning money. Like even like elation. Like even just sometimes it's hard for men to express joy. You be in the wrong room. You smile too big. Somebody call you goofy. Like that goofy man always smiling all the
right,
time. Like we,
right,
we we have so many rigid, like narrow spaces to be free and to like be open and to be our full selves. And so women can give us that space by just giving it the permission and safety and the non-judgmental sort of ability to do it around you, or you can shut it down and then you never see it again. Like
uh,
never again.
yeah,
So y'all
never,
have to be careful in that way, just because y'all powerful. Like there's no way there's no way to underestimate the power of Black women in our lives. It could be for good or for worse. And so there's so much that y'all can do. But again, it's not your responsibility. I mean, it is and it ain't. You know what I'm saying? Like this,
right,
for me, I put the onus on men. I think that we have to do more to be courageous and to create space for ourselves and to have more spaces where men can gather and do this kind of work on our own. So y'all can encourage us to go to that. Like most times it's happening in that way. I got a book for
yes,
Black men. I create space for Black men. It's mothers that bring in their sons. It's buying a book. It's mothers,
yeah,
wives
and
telling
and
their husbands to go.
I would have to piggyback off that and say to the women, encourage them to go to that space and get out the way, okay? So,
Mm-hmm,
like,
hmm.
when he goes to that space,
Yeah.
if he comes back and doesn't want to share with you what happened in that space,
Mm-hmm, hmm.
leave that brother alone. Because for one, he's probably still processing all the
Yeah.
emotions that he most likely is not used to that he experienced in that space. So I think it is important that women allow men to be in that space with the brothers and allow them to be in that space. Like
Yeah.
let him share with you what he wants to share with you.
Mm-hmm.
Because if it's being productive, then sis he getting what he need over there, okay? So he's
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
gonna always come back and give you what you need. But if I know like when a lot of women, especially married women, they have this thing where it's like nothing is a secret. Nothing should be a secret, yet they hold
Mm-hmm.
the secrets with their girlfriends,
Mm-hmm.
You have
Hmm.
to allow the men to be in that space and be in that space how
Yeah.
they wanna be in that space.
Yeah.
So, I don't
Yeah.
that's my opinion.
No, I
I'm
agree
not
with that. I
like
agree.
that.
As much as I'm talking right now, I don't even like talking that much. Like the way you talk about the need to process, sometimes it takes me a long time to really
Right.
sit with my feelings to find out, because if I speak too soon I might misspeak. I might speak out of anger because I got access to anger more than I got access to my grief, because that's how my brain's been trained, even in my work, even in the field. So I gotta pause, I gotta sit down, I gotta take some breaths. It might take me a day for like, okay, let me see how I feel about that thing. And you ask me how you feel about this thing, I know I really might not even know in the moment, and then I get distracted from being able to process that just because I'm trying to give you something and it might not even be real yet. So sometimes we just got to give each other the grace and the patience to process how we need to process, to express it how we need to express. It might not be a long essay. You might give me a whole 3-page text and I might give you 5 words. And that's just because that's all I got.
Right,
But I might be
right,
expressing it in different ways. It might be through actions. It might be through closeness, through touch, through presence, through time. I might be expressing my emotions in ways that's not through verbal, I'm saying,
right,
expression, because I haven't learned those words. I haven't been given the space to just talk and talk and talk. Like that's not how my worldview has been shaping my expression and my interaction with emotions. So we're just different. It's not men, Venus, women, Mars. It's that we not like different planets. We just have on this planet different connections and different permissions and practices to cultivate these kind of emotional, experiences. And so we got to be considerate of that. We got to give space for that and learn who each individual is through compassion, through kindness, but through observation, and not like expecting it to look like me. Like it ain't gonna look like you, and that's fine.
right, right. That's dope. I love that we was able to touch on that. So, at the end of the day,
Hmm.
when you have gone on and joined forces with our ancestors and your book on this earth is closed,
Hmm.
what do you want your legacy to read when it comes to the work that you are doing right now?
Hmm. Um, I would like my work to be presented as remembered as authentic as I could possibly do it, as consistent, um, all the ways with Black folk in mind, uncompromised. Um, and people might look at me and say, I agree, disagree, like him, don't like him. But I would want people to say he did the best he could. Like
Yes,
he tried. Like he really just whatever he could, whatever at whatever stage of development he was at the time, he was trying his best. He had Black people in mind. He wanted to contribute something valuable to this planet, and he did it from the most intense, the best of his own intentions. Whether or not it manifested perfectly, whether or not it was executed well, that I tried my best. I had Black people in mind, that I did it till the end.
that's dope. That's dope. And I believe it's going to read that. I definitely do. Do you have anything coming up that you want to tell the people about? Any workshops, any speaking engagements, anything that you want to let us know about?
There's always stuff. I got some. I mean, just the best thing is to follow my Instagram. So
Okay, where
there's a
can
lot
we
of stuff
find
that's
you?
virtual. At O Cartman1 is my Instagram tag. I got a website though, drobaricartman.com. I'm the current president of the Chicago Association of Black Psychologists, and we put a lot of our forums on there. So we have a website, chicagoblackpsychologist.com. So there's a archive of really really dope like webinars that are
Okay.
accessible right there. So there's stuff that if people are interested in mental health and blackness and culture and from all different angles, using hip hop, talking about grief, talking about culture. I mean, all this stuff we're dealing with. There's a lot of content that already exists that people can go tune into.
All right, that's dope. You guys heard it here. Now, thank you so much, brother. I want to give you your flowers. As I said, I've been watching you for some years now. You're raising two young kings. You're so active. You always have your sons with you. They're so mannerable and good. Like
Mm-hmm.
it shows that they're being led well. Of course, we all just heard it, but I want to give you your flowers because you show up a lot. You show up a lot. I've seen you at many events,
Mm-hmm.
and you really show up for the community and for your people. And shout out to you for that. Big ups to you for that. That's big energy. And
I
I see
appreciate
it.
that.
A lot of people see it. um, I know a lot of people who know of you and know you now. So it is dope to see your journey, to see your growth. Thank you so much again for coming on and blessing the people with this. You are welcome on the show anytime. If you have something new coming up, come on and let us know about it. You have any last nuggets or gems you want to drop for the people before we get out?
No, I appreciate you saying that. I appreciate the acknowledgement of the work and the presence and my most important job on the planet, which is a father to those two brilliant boys. So I appreciate just that acknowledgement. And thank you for your work. For you to see me, mean you out there too. So I also
Right, right.
recognize that you committed to this also. So thank you for the work, for the platform, and for the conversation. I appreciate you.
No problem, brother. All right. So I will be in touch, and thank you again for coming on.
Of course, thanks.
All right, you guys, it's another Boss Conversations. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please tune in again next week, Wednesday, 7 p.m. Central Standard Time, YouTube or www.bossconversations.com.